Hey y'all, it's your girl Narice, and I'm here with a live stream. And I haven't done a live stream in a while, and I actually was gonna hold off on doing this live stream, but fuck it, here we are. Um, and really, what I wanted to get at with this was more than anything a critique of just how things are going in America from my perspective. If anybody gives a fuck, if people don't already know, maybe they got the Truman Show script in advance, so you probably already know. Who knows? Um, but I'm just gonna express myself anyway. I am an opinionated person and a creative, and I just feel like self-expression is necessary regardless of the fabricated things that happen. Anyway, so I was gonna hold off on doing my thoughts on Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance, just because I saw this post from somebody, I forget who it was, that was posting for the Hillman talk, who was a professor, and they were saying that just you don't, and paraphrasing, but just because you know something, that doesn't mean you have to say something. Or you don't teach everything that you know, and there's um good reason to be selective about the things that you share, and I'm trying to be better about that. um some, I think, I mean, I posted some stuff on TikTok, like short clips or whatever, as it was happening in real time, but you know for the last few days I've been seeing a lot of content about people breaking down all the symbolism and all that stuff. And I could get into that, but again, like, there's some things that I've seen people talk about that I agree with, I disagree with. Some things that I noticed that I hadn't really seen people talking about. And, sometimes just because people don't talk about it, that doesn't mean it needs to be said, you know? Um, but all in all, I did enjoy the performance. I think he did a great job. I like the set list that he performed. The like bummed out about was him not doing all right. I thought that that would have been dope to add in there, especially with like the people that were sitting on the light posts, or the street lights, right? And I thought that that was reminiscent of the all right video. I will say that was one of the things that I hadn't seen people talk about. I know there was other symbolisms that I seen somebody broke down about it, like it being like the hangman card in tarot, which can be true. Um, I don't know, but I thought it reminded me of All Right, and I thought that he was going to perform that song, and he didn't. And I felt like that song would have been great for what the theme of that performance was. And so I was surprised that he didn't do it. Maybe it was a part of the set list and had to move it around or whatever the case may be. But I think visually it was represented with the people that were chilling on the streetlights. Um, I mean, aside from that, like there's so many things from like the controller stage, the Great Game of America, and I posted on TikTok that I did a live stream. I did a live stream like about a month and some change ago, basically talking about, which is interesting because I saw a post earlier today that kind of reiterated what essentially what I was saying in that post. Because it was around the time when GNX dropped, or no, it wasn't. It was after GNX dropped, but I think SZA's album came out, and I hadn't listened to her album, and it's not about that right now. I'll get around to that eventually, but um yeah, but my point was that yeah, so I was doing a live stream around that time, when SZA's album dropped. And I was just talking about how they both announced that they were going on tour and everything, and just like the whole rollout and just the politics of the industry. And I was saying that, you know, even though, we see Kendrick as this, I don't know, I feel like there's like a, what's the word? Like a paradoxical element to him. Um, no pun intended. Um, but there's a part of him that's like, with the smoke, and then there's a part of him that's like, a leader of the culture. And I feel like, I mean, it it calls for there to be balance, to need both, like to be a leader. Sometimes, being a leader doesn't always mean like all love and light. Sometimes it calls for you to be willing to go to war, which is interesting because I think that's kind of like what he was saying in 616 in LA. But that's beside the point. But I think, but I say that to say, like, in that live stream, I was like, as much as we see him as this leader or someone that's like a disruptor of the system, like, to be in that career and be in the industry, you still have to play a part of the system, like play the game, right? Like signing the contracts to do the deal with the Super Bowl to even do the performance. You know, booking different venues, booking different events and festivals and this and that, and whatever goes behind the scenes in the business, whether it's like signing deals with labels and getting distributions, getting booked to do certain shows, performing at the Grammys, those things. Like there's politics that go on behind the scenes. And you know, I was saying like my perspective is like we're like, as much as you want to disrupt the system, like you still got to play the game, is essentially what I was saying in that live stream. And it's interesting, full circle moment, we see this performance that with him performing on a game. It could be tic-tac-toe, it could be a mix of tic-tac-toe and a PlayStation controller, which it primarily looked like, with the different geometrical shapes, the triangle, the square, circle, and the X. And also something I hadn't really seen too many people talk about, um, which was, even though it was highlighting like playing the game, there was a lot of like symbol, or like that could be a triple entendre in itself, right? So one, it being a game because it's the Super Bowl, the game of football, right? Then you have the metaphorical playing the game, the American, for the American dream, and progressing in life in the industry. And then also another connection to the whole game theme could be a response to first person shooter, which um I hadn't really seen anybody talk about. I mean, aside from the whole like big is the Super Bowl thing, right? But if you think about that video, the video with Drake and J. Cole, they're playing numerous different types of games, right? So they're playing ping pong, they're playing chess, they're boxing. So the whole theme of that video is them playing games and, being competitive and going at it with one another. And, and first person shooter, like Call of Duty type shit, right? And then the whole like big is the Super Bowl and them trying like recreating that imagery in the video. And really that's how like that whole beef started in the first place, right? Was from first person shooter and J. Cole saying, um, the big three, K Dot, Drake and me type that bar, right? And then Kendrick's response on like that. And, basically saying fuck the big three, it's just big me. And fast forward to the Super Bowl and him having a game themed performance at the Super Bowl. Even though there wasn't really much smoke for J. Cole, but I mean, aside from the obvious smoke for Drake because of Not Like Us, because that's essentially the main person he was going toe to toe with, right? But I thought that that was interesting as well, in terms of like the whole game theme. But he took a more like serious approach to it versus it being like a more like comedic, fun type of symbolism, or not symbolism. It wasn't symbolism. It was just a theme for first person shooter. But I thought that was interesting. But that was yeah, that was one of the points that I wanted to say. And honestly, the main, like, to be frank, the only reason why I really wanted to get on this live stream was to like complain for a second about my own experience. But from the perspective of critiquing not only America, but just the experience of being a Black woman in America, and specifically Black culture. I know it's Black History Month of all times. Yeah, because you know what? We should be able to critique ourselves and our own communities and do the work necessary to hold each other accountable and grow and elevate. I'm like, not my phone trying to interrupt me. Absolutely not. Anyway, and so and the reason why, like, what inspired that was me watching this clip of Godfrey, a comedian, for those who don't know. He's really funny. He's Nigerian, but I think he like reps Chicago, and really funny guy, and I enjoy his comedy. And it was a clip of him being interviewed with Vlad a while ago. So yeah, it was pretty old. But it was a part of a clip that went viral a while ago too, where he basically was saying how, well, there was different parts of that interview that went viral, or several times where he's talked with Vlad that went viral. But specifically the clip that I saw online was him basically, I'm not sure what the question was, but it's because the video started out with him responding. But basically, he was saying, like, you know, calling out the hypocrisy of how Blacks are treated in America, how, you know, we're treated like the bottom of the barrel. We don't get treated with respect, you know, and historically, you know, with everything that we dealt with racism after, once we stopped being free labor and had to exist here in America because we didn't ask to be here, you know, for those who were brought here via slavery and, you know, the slave trade and, you know, the African diaspora, you know, it was against our will to be here. So once there were laws in effect that deemed it unfair and, you know, unconstitutional, because technically it is, to enslave Black folks, and when we were free, you know, we became a liability in this country. And so that's when all the attacks and the hatred and Jim Crow and the lynchings started happening towards Black folks. And then from there, you know, we dealt with segregation. And, you know, who wants to be in community with people who don't treat you with respect, who don't see you as a human being, who don't see you as a person worth existing in this world? And so there was a point in time where segregation worked in our favor because we built our own communities, our own businesses, we had our own school systems, we had our own institutions, and we supported each other. We relied on each other. And then once we started building status and acclaim in our own environments, in our own neighborhoods, it became a problem. And then you have situations like the Black Wall Street, where we start building on our own because we're made to feel like we shouldn't feel included in other communities, then they tear down what we build. And then, then we fight for segregate for against segregation, which is a whole thing in itself. But in him talking about that and just saying like, just the hypocrisy of the things that black people have had to go through in this country historically, from being treated with utter disrespect and like we're not worth anything. But then at the same time, these, other races, or specifically white men in power, and not just white men in power, but, they benefit off our energy, off our creativity, off our genius, off our inventions and ideas, and don't give us credit, steal the credit from us. And, I mean, there's a plethora of examples, not even just in culture, but in the health industry, in sports, in fashion, in engineering, in STEM. There's so many spaces where black people have pioneered at a time where we were disenfranchised and we weren't even given the resources to have the proper knowledge and access to funding, but we were innovative anyway. And in those spaces, people don't give us the credit. Oftentimes, there's many we don't know. And, you know, a lot of the things that we create and make that help influence and steer society forward, specifically in America, is either swept under the rug, it's not, the proper credit isn't due, or it's stolen. And that's something that I've grown up learning about when it comes to the history of America and just how black people have been treated. And me being a artist, a creative, it's different from my perspective. Or growing up, I would hear these things, and what resonated the most with me is when it would happen in the music industry, with artists getting these like shitty deals and getting cheated out their royalties and publishing and stuff like that. And I've said this before on several live streams, but I was just like, because like I grew up in like the late 90s, so a lot of those stories was prominent in the 90s and maybe early 2000s. So when I was younger, I would hear these things, and I just knew I wanted to be an artist and a creative and a singer. And I would hear these stories, and I just knew, I was like, I'm not going to be that artist. I'm not going to be the artist that gets taken advantage of, that gets their ideas stolen, that gets, you know, that gets disrespected by this industry. Like, I'm not going to be one to sell my soul. I'm not going to be one to compromise my art. Like when I get in the industry, I'm going to like stand on my morals and just do the best that I can and make dope art, make sure the music sounds good, it feels good, and it's not, and even if it is like a pop type of sound, because I like pop music too. Like I love pop music, but it's not like cheap pop music. Like it's pop music with substance. Like it's actually going to sound and feel good and be entertaining. And not only that, but I'm going to make sure like my business is right. Like how people are saying like, oh, they weren't getting paid or as a songwriter. Like I know like whatever I need to have put together as a songwriter, I will. Like I'm going to have my copyrights together, my publishing, whatever that is, right? And I also mentioned this in another live stream recently, how, Russ talked about being an independent artist and him saying, like, we're in a day and age where you really shouldn't be able to get like fucked over in the industry because we have internet, and every artist that's ever had that experience is like, if you watch all their like Breakfast Club interviews, like they explain the game, you know and I was one of those people that would watch all those interviews and take notes and study how people have navigated in the industry as an independent artist, and made sure that the publishing was done right, the copyrights were protected, people got paid fairly, all the ins and outs of what needed to be done, you know and I just knew, like, because that was my mindset. That was my mindset. My mindset was like, I will do everything in my power with the resources that are available to me to ensure that that won't be my life. I won't be that artist that will be taken advantage of by this industry. That's not going to be me. Especially being a Black woman in America, knowing our history, knowing the things that have happened to Black people and Black culture, and what even happens up until today with, you know, specifically in fashion, where, you have uppity people or people in higher class systems that might look down on people in the hood or in the Black communities or minority communities and say, like, oh, that's ghetto, why do they look like that, why do they style themselves like this? But then lo and behold, it becomes a fashion trend, and it's a look that you see in high fashion on the runway, or you see certain looks or certain ways that people style like streetwear, and now it's a high-end thing. But when it's a Black people doing it, it's ghetto, it's tacky, it's this and that. But then when you see, you know, white people doing it with, a higher price tag on their clothes, then it's like acceptable, then it's cool, it's fashion forward, it's trendy, you know. And it's interesting knowing that experience as a Black woman from and seeing it on a macro scale, when you see it like objectively, like in the world, like historically. And for me, it growing up being naive to how the world was working around me, it's easy to look at that and like from like a distance, like knowing like these things are wrong. And because this has happened, and because I have this knowledge and awareness of these things happening to Black people and Blacks in all these spaces, and I just want to make sure I can do anything in my own world to prevent that. And it brings me back to I really don't care to like go into this, but I mean, it's a part of my life story, it's a part of my experience, like, as inauthentic that it may have been, it still was a real experience, a real lived experience for me. And when I was like first pursuing music, like performing at open mics and joining a group and performing in a band, that shit was real for me, because this was a real ambition. It wasn't like, oh, this is just like a hobby. Like, no, I wanted to pursue music full time and be an artist. And not only that, but have my own business and pursue entrepreneurship and independence over my life. Like, that was the one thing that I always strived for in any aspect of my life was independence. Like, I just always wanted to break away from everything. Like, and I always felt like held back in that way. Not even just pursuing music, but just in life, like simple things like learning how to drive. Like, all my friends in high school knew how to drive before I could. And because they had like, and mind you, I went to like a private high school. So a lot of them had families, had like two household families, or at least a family where there was like an extra vehicle that they could drive or learn how to drive. And for me, it was just my dad at the time until my cousin moved in and got her own car. But it's still, I didn't learn to drive until like I was in my like late teens, early 20s, around that time. And even like going to college, I just couldn't wait to go to college because I just wanted to get out of my house, right? I just wanted that to have that experience of being on campus, being away from home, like finally getting to like be an adult and live my own life outside of like the confinement of my father, right? Without realizing how um deliberate and how intense the need for that desire was. And I commuted to school. So I lived at home, but I did commute to school and it was so draining. Like, I feel like I would have did a lot better if I was on campus. And luckily, like, I had friends that allowed me to stay with them. Um but even still, like, I still had to come back home, you know? And even with pursuing music and like just different like business ideas and ventures, like I always wanted to like, like I just like I think back to my life and I'm just like, it's more frustrating now knowing what I know and knowing that there's current systemic structures in place intending to keep us held back as a people, but me specifically, keeping me held back. And I don't like, and I know that there's people that argue, like, oh, you can either you can make that an excuse and say, like, oh, are you going to let this hold you back, or are you just going to find a way to win anyway? Right? Or you could blame the whole thing on like race and systemic things, or you know, have change your mindset to see it like, yeah, as Black people, we do got to work 10 times harder, but we still do it and we still win and we still progress and make our achievements anyway. But when I think back, knowing like of all, like how there was like just knowing all the things in place, not even, like, there's still more that probably goes on that I don't even know. But just knowing what I know now of what all has been going on in my life that has probably played a part in like holding me back and why I've struggled in that pursuit of independence, of wanting to move out. That was another thing too. Like, I've been wanting to move out for so long. And when I was working a job where I could probably afford to, I was saving money, and then something would happen, and then I would lose that job, and then I would have to like, pull from my like, it was that constant cycle. It was that constant cycle of like just getting there and then something pulling you back a little bit. And then like just getting there, you know, and that was the thing with me with like, you know, driving, going to college, wanting to move out, working jobs. Like, it was always that pursuit of independence. And it was one point where I was working like I was doing like four different things. I was working two different jobs. I think I was working like three different jobs, and then I was like doing this hosting gig at the bar. And that was like four different things. And I remember at the time my friend was like wanting me to come see her in college. And and I wanted to, but the main times when she wanted me to come visit her would be the weekends, and that was the main time that I would be working. And it was yeah, I don't know. Like there's a point to all of this, right? And so I think back to all of those times, and especially like even me pursuing business. Like I've done everything from like the multi-level businesses, um, online website, um, just so many different things, and just like starting it and then it not like reaching the potential. And some of that was my work ethic, and maybe me not going as hard as I could, and me kind of like being like scared to like approach people. I've done door-to-door sales too. I mean, and at one point I struggled with it, and then there was a point where I was just like I hit the ground like going. Um and you know, like there were so many things that I've done, and a lot of the things, like the jobs that I worked at, like I was good at what I did. Like I was good at my job. But there was always something like holding me back. Like even my first management position, it wasn't until like a year later that I was offered a management job, a management role. And there was at least five different managers. I don't know how truthful that was, but it was told to me that they were advocating for me. I don't know how fabricated the work situation was, but whatever. And I knew that I could do it. I knew I could be in management, and I knew it would put me in a position where I can actually make decent money, and I would be getting benefits, and I could like take care of myself. Sorry, glitch in the matrix. But there was always something holding me back. And you know and then when in full circle back to the music, right? And me being in the group and everything, like I was really serious about it. Like it wasn't like a hobby for me, it was a passion for me, because I actually cared about the music. I cared to like look into contracts and read into like, okay, how do you do the royalty splits when you're in a group, and one person's the producer, one person's a writer, one person, you know like what is the logistics of that. Like I was researching into that thing. Like it wasn't just like some scripted role, some like fake role to play in my life type of thing for me. Like I really was ambitious about it, and it was something that I wanted to pursue legitimately and be successful at, you know? And and the thing is with me, like I'm not a jealous person. I'm not the type of person that looks at somebody else's success and think like, "Oh, they shouldn't have that." Like, I'm more times than not, more times than I should. I'm I'm cheering for other people to win, because I always believe that I just always thought that it was good to support other people the way I would want to be supported, you know? And for years I was always like that. Whether it be like, you know, being in the city and seeing a street performer play music or sing, and I will always stop and listen, or stop and record and post it, or if I had money, bought their CD or something. And like I literally am. I'll show you if I could switch my camera, maybe. And yes, my room looks crazy right now. But if my life were like the Truman Show, you already know. But I'll show y'all. I'm not going to show specific CDs, but this is backwards. This looks crazy. Oh my goodness. Okay, why does this look like this? Like, what the fuck is happening? Okay. Well, basically, this right here, I mean, aside from the Janet Jackson CD, this pile of CDs right here, this pile, most of those CDs are independent artists, up and coming artists, aspiring artists that were selling their CDs that I've acquired over the years, whether it's artists from my hometown, people's whose performances I've been to, shows that I've been to, whether they were selling these CDs on the street, whether they were performing at a bar and they had a CD. I literally have a stack of CDs that I've purchased in support of other artists because I always believed that it's just the right thing to do to like put out the energy that you want. And I always would support artists the way I would want to be supported. I would go to shows. I would literally go to shows and not even know people, but be like, all right, well, this is a new artist. Let me go check out what they got going on. Go to a show and just like buy merch, whether I liked it or not. Like they could be all right. And I still would buy something in support because I would just always support artists the way I would want to be supported as an artist. And you know, to like the realization of like what my life is exhausting sometimes. Like I can deal with it. Like I'm pretty sure I was like constructed to deal with it. But sometimes it could be frustrating, especially when you're somebody that's ambitious. And it's not just like you're like a willful dreamer or whatever the case may be. Like, and the thing is like, and I know like I'm not as productive as I want to be. Like, I know I'm not as disciplined as I could be. And again, like I don't want to just keep blaming it on this like system, but at the same time, like it's kind of hard not to when you have so many different things pulling on your energy and your life source as a being, as a person, as like a spirit having a human experience and just having all of these things pulling and tugging at you in this world. And yeah, sometimes it's hard for me to be consistent, and I want to be like, I want to be disciplined. I want to be the type of person that gets up at like 4 in the morning, does their workout and is ready for the day, does the work day. And, but I'm not in a space where I can like completely be that, like I have to think about other things that interfere with that. And it's not just like I can just focus on my work, I have to focus on things that try to come up against my work and other things in this world, like, being spiritually protected, spiritually aware, constantly fighting for my soul. Fighting for my soul. And just fighting to be seen as a person rather than this being that's a commodity that people could just push buttons on and just take from and drain for their own gain. And it's frustrating sometimes. And, and sometimes it's like, I want to be vulnerable and honest, but then I have to think, some people probably don't even care because they were expecting this part of the script to happen today. And therefore validates more reason to not consider me as a human being. And the main point that I wanted to get at, the whole reason why I'm even making this live stream, it's not even about the Super Bowl performance. But I understand there's ways to make the algorithm work in your favor, which I guess is why people press the buttons and trigger emotions and put out their content a certain way on certain days because they know certain energy is going to influence and, whatever. So yeah, I am using Kendrick in the Super Bowl for the sake of my content in hopes that I can attract the audience that actually gives a fuck about what I have to say and will want to follow and subscribe and eventually build my page to a space where it could be monetized and I can actually get some fucking money from my own content on my own platform rather than people constantly pulling and draining and profiting off of my spirit and me not getting a fucking thing from it. The point that I wanted to get at, 2 points. I started to say I'm not one to be because I genuinely care to see people win. And it was the whole reason why I've showed y'all the stack of CDs that I have in support of other artists. Not just like people in the industry, like, that are signed to a major label. Like, no, up and coming artists that are just out here grinding, doing their thing, right? And when it comes to like people in the industry, I could never be jealous of anybody in the industry that is successful living the dream off of exploiting the spirit of someone else, if not because they sold their own soul. How could I be jealous of that? And the crazy thing is that a lot of them are not fucking happy. Like, y'all got families and money and success and billboard hits and all of that stuff and friends. And I mean, like, I'm sure y'all got y'all adversities and struggles and stuff, and you got to deal with like who can you trust in your circle because who really wants to be a friend to you because they're really your friend, or they want to be your friend because you're this name person, right? But you're not worried about how you gonna feed yourself. You're not worried about well, I mean, there might be some out there because they say people really not making money like saying they making money. But I'm saying like you're not struggling like that. There's people really struggling here. And it's crazy to me how some of y'all like be like faking the struggle to be relatable. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. That was a minor point that I wanted to get to. No pun intended. You know, major arcana, minor arcana, major constellations, minor constellations, major scale, minor scale, whatever. The main point, the whole reason why I'm even on this live stream circles back to the conversation around how Black people as a whole have been treated here in America. The experience that Black folks have had to deal with in terms of being the sauce, being the swag, being the innovators, being the tastemakers with the fly ideas, the innovative ideas that nobody thinks about, and then constantly being taken from, not getting the credit, stolen, you not getting paid fair, not getting fair opportunities. Like that experience is that Black people have experienced as a whole. And then like it's a whole nother thing to experience that spiritually. And the main people that you fight for and that you care so much about and do your best to advocate for are the main people that are using those same tactics against their own people. Like, and I've said this before, this isn't new, but you know, I just feel like my experience and me just trying to like live and exist in this world feels like the Black experience, just like, but one person. And then not only me just being one person, but being oppressed by my own people. Like, that's the most disappointing part. It's like, as much as we've been through historically as a people, and then like upon realizing like a lot of the things that we were brainwashed into believing to justify oppressing, you know, realizing like, okay, this is a lie, this is fabricated, these are bullshit stories that are being fed to us, but then still doing it, still playing that game. You know, I saw a post on social media earlier today with someone that was saying like, you know, basically being like skeptical about a lot of the stuff that's been going on lately, like everything from like whether it's like Kendrick's performance to the announcement. I forget her name. I think she's a congresswoman or someone. Luna something. Forgive me for messing up your name, but she said a press conference about them doing an investigation and a lot of the secret files and you know conspiracy-esque stories and situations like the RFK assassination, Martin Luther King, UFOs, and stuff like that. And mind you, in my live stream, like a few months ago, I was saying, you know, like right after the election, basically saying like, can we just get to a point where like the government stops acting like UFOs and aliens are like a taboo thing? Like we know they're real. They're real. Why would they not be? I mean, especially in today's age of the things that were considered conspiracy theory like 20 years ago, it's just like common knowledge now. We just got to talk about it in code. And I mean, I do a little bit, but I like, you know, about spirituality, about magic, you know, like making a wormhole to transmute energy from one place of the world to another. That's a real thing. That's not just like science fiction in a Christopher Nolan movie that they did in Interstellar to get from one part of the universe to another. Now, how they did that is a little bit different, but the concept of that is real. Like You know, the magic of it all, manipulating energy, manipulating weather, like the things that was considered conspiracy, like we know that to be true these days. So why are we talking as if we can't just say it is what it is? Especially with everything that was going on with those fires. I mean, there's a lot of speculation of like blame that could be tossed around. They were saying like there's these like smart what do you call it? Electric, like energy panels or whatever that were on certain houses that were like really flammable. The lack of water, the winds, the earths, the winds, the fires, like we like we know what it is. So like, you know, and especially when it comes to the stuff about, like the whole drones. I mean, I feel like the drones is different than um, you know, alien aircrafts. I feel like that's a different thing. But um but still, like why are we just like acting like we're not seeing the things that we see? And like I've said before, and I'm not the only one who said it, like the universe, not just our galaxy, there's, I'm not sure the exact number, but there's like millions, I believe, galaxies. And we're in a star system that's within a portion of our own galaxy, the Milky Way. There's many galaxies. Why would there not be other life forms in space? There's probably other life forms within our own galaxy. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying. But like when you think about the probabilities and the numbers of how many planets there are, how many star systems there are, how many planets within the Goldilocks section, or maybe there might be life forms that might not necessarily need to live in those Goldilocks areas because they've adapted to a different space within their own star system. So what might be a Goldilocks like habitable place for humans to live on another solar system might not be necessary to other life forms that are out there. They might not need to be in those zones because they can breathe in, or they can live under extreme heats, or they can live in very gaseous planets, whatever. But like, to think that we're the only ones out here, like we know that that's not true. We know that there's many a story and proof in people's experiences of like experiencing like other worldly beings. So like let's just talk about it and just say what it is. That's just how I'm at, where I'm at with it. And on that note, that's bringing back to another point that I was trying to say with this video that I watched earlier today of this guy. Sorry for not knowing his name. I saw his post earlier today. He was basically saying like, you know, yeah, all these things are coming out, but like, don't get so. I'm gonna paraphrase because I don't. He didn't say it exactly like this, but he's like, look, just be skeptical about everything. Like even with everybody, like with the truths that people are presenting, and like this whole notion of like, okay, we're in a day and age where like everybody's like gonna be telling the truth and fighting for the right things, and like there's a shift. Like, it's a lot of people playing both sides. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of like, okay, I'm jabbing you, but the jab is actually helping you. But I'm like, why are you jabbing me? Why can't you just help? You know? And like I part of me gets it at the same time, but it's a lot of Stockholm tactics happening out here, and I'm just not feeling it. You know? And not that I've ever like expected anybody to like be a savior for me. You know, like I'm grateful for like support and help and like hey, you might want to look over here type things, or like, you know, you might want to get this information from this over here, these resources. Like I appreciate stuff like that, but like do I trust people? Why? Why would I? After all the things that I've been through as a black woman. And plus like just being disappointed by people who have I've known and loved, you know, I like known actually, like whether the version of them mm, was a true version of them or not. In my reality, from my perspective, like I've been disappointed by people I've loved and would have fought the world for single-handedly and have. You know, like I've been disappointed by everyone. So when it comes to trust is very fleeting. And I get it, like I get that people gotta play the game, you know, and you know, can't be so outwardly about their stance on certain things because they're afraid of how the reactions might be or people's opinions. Like I mean, we see that with politics, like with people who were, you know, supportive of Trump and being scared to say so, you know, because fear of judgment. And I get that. I get that. I didn't vote for him, but you know, and and now just seeing how like a lot of the stuff is playing out, like I mean, I really don't like and I'm not like I don't want to be the type of person that's like shitting on people who are conservative and voted for Trump, because I see a lot of people doing that. And even people to people who did ignorantly vote for him and now are saying like, oh, I regretted it, or I did support him and now I don't because I see what all is going on and I see how these changes are affecting my actual life. You know, I don't want to be the person that's like shitting on those people, because I mean, I feel like at some point, like we all have been ignorant and made the wrong decision about something. And I know this is a big decision to make as a society, but I think it's better to be like, all right, well, you know, it's already done, you know, and if you've come to your senses or like changed your perspective and your opinions, then that's cool, you know. And well, here are some resources, here is some information to consider, you know, now that we're here. You know, I don't think it's advantageous to anybody to just to continue to attack one another. Now, it's necessary to fight, you know, and to you know, fight for what you stand for, especially when you see the Constitution and our liberties and rights being stripped away by people in positions of power, and you know, this oligarchy that's happening right now. But you know, like I feel like it's certain battles that are worth fighting more than society fighting each other, is what I'm saying. I feel like it's better to look at what like the fight that's actually going to address the people in power that are making these decisions versus the people who were ignorant and lacked knowledge and resources and made wrong decisions. You know, I feel like it's not beneficial to attack those people. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if you want to like relay that smoke, relay the smoke where it can actually bring some change and help, is what I'm saying. But my point in even bringing that up is just an example of how I understand why people are scared to stand on what they stand for. But at the same time, like like we have to get beyond that. Like the whole like playing both sides, like, oh, I'm a be helpful here, but then I'm a jab you here, but then I'm a like, if you over there, then you over there and stay over there and say that. If you here, then you here, then say that. But the whole like playing both sides thing, because at this point, just me personally, like I get it, certain things is like necessary to not say out loud, which I understand. Then if that's the case, then don't say shit. Like, don't, if you're not going to be helpful, don't say nothing. You know what I mean? And if you are helpful, stand on it. But like the whole like playing both sides thing, like I feel like we beyond that as a society. Like, stand where you stand. Like, what do you stand for? And I understand there's some things that require like tactic, and and you having to like make chess moves or whatever. But even with that said, like, all right, if you want to relate it to chess, mainly because I've been playing chess recently, the black pieces are black and the white pieces are white. You don't mix the color pieces unless you're capturing the other side. So whether you have a rook or a bishop or whatever, they're all the same color because you know what it all stands for. You know what it is. They all have different moves. There's different moves and there's different tactics. But those pieces that are over there belong over there, and the pieces that are your pieces belong here. It's like it's a lot of chess going on where it's funny. I, there's a lot of chess going on where it seems like people are playing with both colors. And it's funny that I'm saying this is because I've been playing like the physical board of chess by myself, which is funny. But that's a literal sense, and that's actually me playing a game. But on a serious sense, in terms of like the things that we say we stand for or are fighting for in society, like that's different. That's different. That actually involves like our livelihood and our rights and how we can operate as a society in this country. What affects how we live and how we move in this world, you know? And yeah, I'm just like, I'm over the confusion of it all. Cause at this point I don't like, if you ain't rocking with me, that's cool. Then stay over there, is what I'm saying. You like then just like do that 100%. Do that 100%. And that's cool. You know? Because like we know what it is at this point. We know what the truth is. We know the lies that's been told to us. Like I said, a lot of the things that we believe to be conspiracy, like we know what it is. We know that certain things have been fabricated in history prior to events happening. It's not hard to decide where you want to stand. Either continue to like accept the lie willfully because we know what it is at this point, or decide, okay, I'm not going to go along with this lie. And we're going to stand for the truth. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, now I am a Democrat, a Republican. No, it's just like, okay, are you going to keep going along with the lies? Because we know they're lies now. And I'm not specifically talking about politics. I'm just using that as an example, talking about a lot of things, you know? But yeah, cuz I'm just kind of like I'm over the confusion. I'm over the like playing both sides. I'm over the like, oh, I'm going to be mad about this situation because this conversation came up. But then lo and behold, it's some bullshit, you know? And I say this because like I've been watching Scandal. If my life were like the Truman Show, you might know. I've been watching Scandal. And like to some people, Scandal is just like this drama show about politics and it's fun and it's like the steamy moments with all the like sex scenes or whatever and the really good dialogue and them going off on each other and whatnot. But Scandal was a documentary because it's crazy how a lot of the stuff, like, I mean, okay, like, yeah, there's certain things that's gonna happen in the show that's probably gonna happen or we've seen in real life, like an assassination attempt on the president. Like we've seen that historically, and that's something that's happened recently. So like, okay, yeah, like there's certain things that I was like, okay, yeah, of course, that's a storyline that would happen. But there's certain things on that show that we're seeing happen in society today. From the recent plane crashes that's been happening at the end of January, and there's been quite a few since. And then the whole like storyline. I mean, the show's been out for like 10 years, so if I'm ruining it, oh well, watch it again or watch it. But the whole thing with the president being the pilot or being behind, well, not the pilot, but being behind a commercial air crash that happened, and it was 329 people on the plane, and the secret society B613 was behind it. I mean, and it just so happens that Olivia's dad is the guy that's behind and got these spies. And apparently they're more powerful than the government itself. But what do I know? Clearly, I don't know nothing because y'all get the script before I get the script. Y'all see the show before I see the show. But from what I know, from what I do know, what I have seen, at this point, like, and I just feel like, yeah, we can go on about like the politics, and that is important to talk about, and that is important to discuss. But like from what I've seen and observed, I just feel like there's certain events that's like set to happen regardless of who's in office. Regardless of whoever's in office, there's certain things that's just going to pop off and happen at specific times. And I mean, maybe whoever's in office or whoever has a majority in like the House and the Senate may have some influence to like prevent or influence like certain things into happening more than other events or whatever the case may be. But I just feel like, because like it's crazy to me how this show came out like 10 years ago. And and the thing is, I never finished watching the show. Like I got like halfway through some of the seasons because I was in high school when it came out, and then like I just like the storyline. I kind of like fell off with it because it was like, all right, how many times is Olivia gonna go back and forth between Jake and Fitz? You know what I mean? Like she get Fitz. They come out and then something happens, he got to get back with Melly, or then he get back with Melly, she get back with Jake. Like it's about so many times of that, but beyond that, like if like with the actual like political stuff that happening in the show, like the romantical drama, like I get it. It's the juicy thing that keeps you like, like the interest in there. And I mean, I'm here for it. I'm not gonna act like I'm not here for it. Like I judge, but bitch, I be tuned in though. But I say that to say, but when you like actually pay attention to like the political stuff that's happening in the show and what's like bills being passed, the process of passing the bills, like them having the who is it, the person that get up there at the podium and talk to the public and got to speak on the behalf of the president and got to spin the stories and narratives just to answer the reporters and all of that, and they got to sound like they know what they're talking about and say all the right things and say, yes, we're confident about this bill. And I'm sure the president would like to address this. And yes, we're moving forward with this and we're standing on this. And, but there's some bullshit that's happening behind the scenes that we don't see, and I don't know if it's happening like how it is on Scandal, but I'm sure that there's many a time where even the people that work there probably might not necessarily agree what all is going on, but they got to go up on that podium and talk to the press and say what they got to say. But I'm sure there's times where they get off that podium and they like, what the fuck is this motherfucker doing? But they got to do their job. They got to play the game. But what do I know? Oh, what do I know? I don't know. But I just say this to say, it's more that be going on than what we be seeing. And, and I mean, like I said, like y'all be getting the script before I get the script. So, I mean, but I do think it's interesting how like I've said, every quarter it's a new drama. It's a new drama every quarter. If it's not this, all right, then, and at this point, I feel like it don't matter who it is actually. It's just like, okay, this is the particular thing we're going to complain about and blame. And then if it just so happens to fit that person, and we'll use that person and plug them into the storyline. But this is the storyline. It's quarter one, 2025. This is what we're going to complain about. We know these events are happening at this time. We got election happening, Super Bowl is happening, these holidays are happening, these events are happening. And so, this will, this high moment will, where it'll get everybody's hopes up. And then this tragic moment will happen. And then, this will be the story that's in the media. Somehow we'll spin it to relate to this energy source. We'll put in a little razzle dazzle of blame and shame, get the emotions riled up, and in our little press conferences, we'll make some references to what's happening at the energy source to power in whatever we got going on. We're planting potatoes and tomatoes and cutting down vines. And so we'll make those references in the press conference just so it pulls into what's happening at the power plant. Make sure you razzle dazzle in that blame and shame from eons ago. This fits your storyline? All right, well, we're going to plug you in because it ties into this event that's happening right now. So, well, yeah, all right, come forward. This is your script. This is your script. Make sure you include these talking points. Make sure you, make sure you, make sure you, make sure you, and then proceed with your content. And then this event is going to happen. And then this event is going to happen. And then we'll try to bend the algorithm and make sure your content shows up. Oh, she's not watching those guys anymore? Well, we'll bend the algorithm. Make sure you include those talking points just in case you might come up in the algorithm. Because that's going to connect you to the power plant and boost your content. If you want to pay for advertisement so we can try to bend the algorithm for you, then this is our fee. Pay the fee, and we'll try to get you back on the algorithm. If we got to burn down some cities, then that's cool. This is all for entertainment purposes. Allegedly, allegedly, allegedly. You know, we got to sprinkle that in there. I guess. Maybe. But it's not like, am I lying though? And really, the real issue is that I care too much. I think that the real problem is that I care too much, and people know this. And they know. They know. Yeah, so when you razzle dazzle in the little shame and the blame, she's gonna feel bad. She's gonna feel away. So she's probably gonna do something to try to like make up for it and this and that, but we're not gonna go for it. We're just gonna keep trying to razzle in the blame and shame. But then as we're razzling, dazzling in the blame and the shame, make sure you make sure you so you show up on the algorithm. And oh yeah, by the way, this is what's on the menu. So if you make a reference to the menu and then you can hack the system because, you know, autonomy and independence and like freedom of body, mind, and spirit, we don't care. We don't care because it's our PowerPoint. Is our power plant connected to the PowerPoint? And Elon spent too much money. So bend the algorithm. We don't care about women's rights. Privacy, freedom of your body, mind, and soul. Why would we care about that? We're making too much money off your body, mind, and soul. And Elon spent too much money. Or Elonia. What is that? Oh my God. You're naming names. They're going to be upset. Oh, yeah. And well, apparently they've taken away CIA. So I guess I don't have to worry about CIA being outside the door. I mean, look, I'm a black woman in America. Like, if God be for me, whom shall I fear? Who? The government? The government been after black people for forever. What's new? Yeah. I said everything I needed to say. I hope y'all enjoyed this live stream. I said what I said, per usual. Um, yeah, Kendrick had a great performance. Symbolisms was great. I'm still learning. People are breaking down the colors and the numerology and the the geometrical things and all, all of that is dope. It was a great performance. Um, you know, I hope everybody that's doing like the breakdown videos, I hope it's actually like inspiring people to shift how they move in this world, especially in America. Like, like it's cool, like and like I'll make the funny content and all of that stuff for like the, shits and giggles and all. But I hope the actual like, the people who are like mesmerized by the art and all these things and the symbolism and like the greater message and like, fighting the system and Uncle Sam and all that. Like I hope the people who are actually consuming the content or like even people that are a part of the content, I hope it's not just like oh, this is a really cool think piece for the moment. And, you know, oh, this is so dope for Black History Month. And eventually it'll become Black History. I hope it's actually like inspiring y'all to like see and move differently rather than just like coming up with the PowerPoints connected to the power plant of symbols and colors and geometrics. Like all of that is cool. And I love that. I love what it's the conversation, but make sure it's more than just conversation and it's really actually impacting how you move and how you show up and what you actually stand for. Because you can't stand for the liberation of Black people, meanwhile co-signing the oppression of Black people. Like jokes and all that, cool or whatever, but how do you move? Where do you stand? And what do you stand for? We all don't got to stand for the same things. We all ain't got to like the same things. But, you know, it's a lot of people double dutching. And I would just be curious to know, what do y'all stand for? That's all I'm saying. But anyway, that concludes my message. And thank you for who all are part of this live stream. I hope you all enjoyed this. Um and yeah, much love to y'all. I'll conclude this with a prayer. Hopefully I'll say a prayer from the heart. Um and hopefully it won't be another sermon. Anyway, with much gratitude, I pray for the empowerment, the liberation, the education, and the freedom of all people, but specifically Black folks in America, because it is Black History Month and this is our time, our season. And regardless of the things that hold us back, that try to diminish us and oppress us and tell us that we're not good enough and we're not great enough, even though we know we are, that we see beyond the things what we aren't. And may we be clear in knowing who we are and what we stand for and what matters to us and what we love and what represents in our culture. And not only that, but may we also be in the frequency of having a good time. And yes, fighting the fight for freedom and liberation and truth and knowledge, but may we also make time to enjoy one another and show love and appreciation and empowerment and uplifting and support for one another. Because if there was ever a time where we all need love and support, it would be now. So, with much love, with much gratitude for what's already been, what is now, and what is yet to come. Amen. I mean, Ashe. I hope y'all enjoyed this prayer. I try not to be too long-winded, but just for the sake of like numbers, I'll probably filibuster this video for a second. But I mean, I could do some promo. Um, I am still working on breaking out the house. I've just, things have come up energetically, and I've just been in a space of energetically, like just like resetting and cleansing and clearing. I made a post of um me making a spiritual cleanse and a spiritual bath. So that's just kind of been my wave right now. And just cleansing the frequencies, releasing things that don't serve me, and just, not just energetically, but just like mindsets, and just certain perceptions about life and just myself and just experiences and stuff like that. And just to have the fortitude to see the truth and also be able to receive it and receive the truth well, you know and yeah, so that's just kind of like where I've been focused on right now. Good, has been a journey, it's still like a battle, um you know but I mean, I guess that's just kind of how, like, until they're not, until I'm excited. I feel like soon enough there will be a space in life for me where I can just be in my like feminine space of like receiving and like, you know, being in like safety and like relaxed and really being able to care for myself and heal and recuperate. And it's like it's hard to heal when you're in like on edge. Not on well, I'm literally on edge, like sitting on the edge of my bed, but when you're like on guard rather, and you're in like battle, fight, grind, survival mode. And and I woke in an era of like thriving, which is ultimately like the point of what I was getting at. Just like being in survival and like battle and just the things that I've had to battle and the people I've had to battle and battling people that I normally would be fighting for. But I truly believe that I I'm normally an optimistic person, and I believe that this year is a year where, I want things to change in my life. I don't want to constantly be battling. I don't want to be in the same space. Like, I can't believe it's another year and I'm still in this like space. Like, I mean, and I feel like I remember like what was going on last year, and I'm just like, yeah, something's got to change. Like, I got to get out this fucking space. I feel like, and it's interesting. Like, you ever like be in an area for a long period of time and then like you go out of that area or you go somewhere that you haven't been in a while and it's changed, like there's new buildings, there's like what you used to know was over there ain't there no more. And you know uh and it's like, oh wow, things have changed, you know, and I feel like that I experienced that like when I first bought my car, and I was like, damn, this town ain't what it was before. There's a lot of changes here. I'm grateful to have my own car, you know, to be able to move around and make the moves I need to make. But yeah, like, you know, and so but I'm like I'm ready for like change in my life. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna be working on breaking out the house, but do stream the music on SoundCloud. Correspondence and demo version of Breaking Out the House is there. I'm working on a new version, new and improved, which I'm really excited about, which y'all have seen on the live stream. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, I'm gonna conclude this live stream here. Much love to you all, and I will see y'all later.